story that's ever been told. My name is Ross Edwards. I'm going to be giving you a quick rundown on a webcomic by internet user Morgenstern that I read in the 2010s that still lives rent-free in my brain. Hopefully, I will have convinced you that this is, in fact, the greatest thing ever written. It's more than just a webcomic. It might be the most ambitious story ever told in the medium. Yes, I'm aware of things like Homestuck. It's a story that manages to capture a lot of what makes things in the Mario universe cool without ever having Mario, Luigi, Bowser, or Peach ever appear in person. And of course, I can tell you everything about it. We're going to be doing a run-through of the 5 chapters of the story, boarding the chainless Piranha Plant Laboratory, at Twister Sporo, Bob-omb Battlefield, and Battle at Pokehead, where at precisely 144 strips, the comic ends without any warning. The story was, however, left to us in the form of epilogue notes by Morgenstern. By the end of this presentation, you will realize that the project was maybe too good for this cursed world we live in. So we'll have discussion of the epilogue after that. We're going to jump right into Chapter 1, Boarding the Chainless. We open on a shot of our hero, Go. He's a toad, but he has no hat. That's pretty important. He's lost his memory, and he gets picked up by a crew of sand pirates aboard the ship the Chainless. You can see we've got a Koopa Troopa captain, as well as a Pianta, a Raven, and a Shy Guy crewing it. He's a little reluctant to join a crew headed by a Koopa at first, but the alternative is being dumped back out onto the sand, so he sticks around. Toads in this universe are experts on magic. There are basically 2 schools of magic. There's Toad magic and there's Magic Koopa magic. This is pretty much canon to Mario even. No one on this ship has any expertise with magic, and a lot of the ship runs on magic, so they figure Go's probably worth picking up. He wakes up that night to find the Shy Guy is attacking him with a chainsaw. The chainsaw is based on Super Mario World's chainsaws from Cheese Bridge. Go scrambles around the ship and notices there's a fire flower growing in between the floorboards. Even in the middle of the desert, life finds a way. This brings us to a discussion of the old art. In the Mario universe, there are power-ups. We all know them. Toad magic usually is just mundane things, cleaning, etc. But some toads study the old art, long forbidden magic, which allows them to take power-ups and absorb them into their body. This is not to be confused with the old art style, as Morgenstern would later hire a better artist than himself. They fight armed with his new firepower. Go goes on the offensive and manages to singe Guy's arm. At the same time, Go gets sliced by the chainsaw. You will notice, just like in Mario, after taking a significant amount of damage, the power-up has left Go. Meanwhile, Palma, Martello, and McCoy, the other 3 members of the crew, were making a bet on how long it would take for Go to die. They explain that Guy is the worst fighter on the ship and is mostly just there for like mundane tasks. Go takes it well, as you can see. They have a discussion. Martello is unimpressed with Go, like he didn't really do much, but he's got potential and she's eager to see where it goes. Go is starting to regain some of his memories. He states he has no reason to go back to his former life, and he's ready to become a full member of the Chains. And that's the end of Chapter 1. It's an introduction to the dynamics of the main characters of the story, displays some of the important powers of the universe, but it kind of leaves you wanting more. Who are these characters? What are they doing in this sand pirate ship? Which is a great place for an introductory chapter to end. We move on to the Piranha Plant Laboratory. It opens with a mission briefing from Martello. She explains that they're going to a facility where piranha plants were being researched by the Koopa military. Note that the emblem of the Chainless is behind them. It's a chain chomp with no chain. That's where the ship gets its name from. McCoy asks the question many of you might have: why are they studying piranha plants in a desert? And then Palma, the Pianta, explains that it was for containment in the event that something went wrong, and something obviously did. They wouldn't be able to grow past the lab. I've attached an image of an actual piranha plant next to this piranha plant. As recompense for slicing his arm, Guy takes the time to knit Go a bandana so that he can have a hat. Not having a hat is a pretty big deal for toads, if you think about it. in the Mushroom Kingdom, who are the only people that don't have hats? Princess Peach. Mario doesn't have a Toad hat, he's got an even better hat. They're big deals. So not having a hat means you're either some kind of national hero or you're like a criminal who's disgracing your Toad ways. Go also does this thing throughout the series where he goes on like extremely verbose soliloquies describing the situation around him. It can be kind of off-putting to read, but I live for this kind of thing. We get to see Go's insight into every member of the Chainless, which gives us a unique viewpoint into the cast that you wouldn't get from something like a film. I'm not going to read this all to you, but it does a great job of fleshing out the dynamic between the 5 members of the team. He also explains a little bit about how the ship works. The explanation is, I don't know, it's magic, I guess. The ship runs on a Power Star engine, like the things in Mario Galaxy that power the Comet Observatory. It outputs way more energy than the ship actually needs to run. It can create matter, which is interesting. It causes the fire flowers to grow on the cracks between the wood. It does whatever the writer needs it to do at the time, which is nice when you have an infinite power source. They disembark at the facility and they find it is shockingly empty. They split into 2 teams to explore, find some goodies, maybe to sell as information to the other countries, maybe even back to the Koopa Kingdom. They seemed pretty interested in this facility before something went wrong. McCoy and Martello's bet on Go turns into a running gag here. McCoy wagered his last pack of cigarettes and his lighter until they go back to town. He is miserable, but desperate to not let Martello know how miserable he is. The boys' team finds the scientists that have been working on the piranha plants, and they see that they've all been murdered. McCoy has only one thing on his mind, and it's one of the funnier panels of the comic. This scientist here represents a Goomba in Morgenstern's drawing. Doesn't really look like a Goomba, but nothing looks exactly like the Mario counterparts in this story. The girls find much more valuable things than the dead scientist. Palma seems to have like an intuition for finding things that leads her straight to the archive room where all the data from the research is kept. She gives us a little bit of insight into what they were researching, and we get to see Morgenstern's interpretation of the Fire Brothers, as well as a drawing of Petey Piranha from Sunshine. He is depicted as battling Mario, which is very interesting. There are only 2 appearances of Mario in this entire comic, and this is one of the 2, as this tiny little image. So this facility was researching piranha plants. They wanted to develop one that could lead troops and think like a person. Guy and Go get encountered by some piranha plant spider creatures. Go does his thing where he goes on a mental soliloquy, and Morgenstern subverts our expectations here by actually having someone suffer consequences because of this. Go is suddenly realizing just how useless he is when he's not focusing. He's not a master of the old art like a certain plumber that we know, so it takes him some time to absorb the power-ups that he's got. He does eventually absorb the power, and he's able to defeat the bug plant things, and they decide to split up to alert the rest of the crew. Palma has also realized that this operation might have been a trap, and she finds herself in a world of her own with a mysterious, shadowy figure. Ooh, who could it be? We get to see Palma's backstory here. The mysterious figure is like able to delve into her mind, and so it's like dredging up these memories that take place during the events of Sunshine. You can see that this is like the graffiti piranha plant from Sunshine. It permanently stunted her physical growth. And so Pianta are known for like their extreme strength. I think in one of the games, one like literally can throw Mario hundreds of feet into the air. But Palma is like kind of short, she's depicted as, so she's a physical runt. Palma attempts to reason with this mysterious creature. They're both kind of weird genetic freaks among plant kind. Piantas are palm trees. But despite how she was treated in her home country, she's found a new home among the Sand Pirates with Martello and McCoy and Guy. So maybe this piranha plant freak could do the same thing. Of course, he rejects this outright. His plans are bigger than just acceptance. He wants to escape and take control of all the plants in the world and raise them as an army. And when you've got piranha plants, that's actually a pretty threatening army. Martello finally figures out what's going on, and she's able to break Palma out of this situation. The talking piranha plant introduces himself with a name, Thrive. He mentions that he has connected the consciousness of every blade of grass and every plant together as one. Guy manages to track down McCoy, who displays that he is the best fighter physically on the team. He's killed like 7 or 8 of these piranha plants on his own. More importantly, you can see that he's found a cigarette. It's in his beak. Martello's parlay with Thrive, meanwhile, is breaking down. He reveals that his plan was to lure them here so that he could take the Chainless and then go out and conquer the world. Go interrupts him and delivers an incredibly hypocritical one-liner about how Thrive talks too much. Thrive's mastery over plant life actually manages to extend even to the fire flower that Go has absorbed into his body, and he's able to lock him in place. Go is unable to move at this point until he relinquishes the fire flower. Martello takes McCoy's lighter and attempts to light Thrive on fire, which is kind of funny. McCoy has not managed to find a lighter, and so he's pretty mad about this. This big, ugly plant monster has taken his. Of course, his real motivation is that he cares for his teammates. He doesn't want them to get killed by this piranha plant, but he would never admit that. One more flashback to Palma's backstory. She's wearing a Timed Hits t-shirt, Super Mario RPG reference. We love it. There's a lot of little Mario references in the background of all these comic panels. I'm not going to point all of them out, but they're really cool. Palma's mom has been outside Isle Delfino. She's more worldly. She has this nice little thing to say about how just because Palma's small here doesn't mean she's small out there in the world. And one day she's going to look back and she's going to realize that being weak for a Pianta is like being slow for a bullet. And so Palma displays this strength by just ripping into Thrive's chest and grabbing his core. Martello has a bullet bill blaster ready to fire. This drawing is it's charming in how childish it looks to me, this little display of the bullet blaster. I just love the little smirk of the bullet bill too. Thrive gets absolutely obliterated by this. It's a special herbicide bill blaster. Martello always comes prepared. She was worried that Palma would die from this because she's a plant, but she's all right for the most part. McCoy's fine too, thanks for asking. But Martello isn't finished yet. She's pretty genre savvy, and she knows that when you kill the boss, he's always got a second form. She asks Go if he can transform into his fire form, and sure enough, Thrive has survived the blast. He's there ready. He's this ugly creature now. He's got Martello in place, and he's laughing at Martello's plan. If Go transforms into his fire form, Thrive can just control him. What's different this time? Last time, the room wasn't filled with a highly flammable herbicide. And it, of course, explodes. Go and Martello manage to survive. Martello noticed that Go doesn't burn from his own fire, and she's got a family history of fire resistance, which will be explained way later than you want it to be. They decide that they're not going to take anything from the laboratory, they're going to just let it burn to the ground. McCoy has some words for Martello and her risky behavior. He's not ready for Martello to die and have Palma take over running the ship. Speaking of Palma, McCoy has some concerns here. She's plant-based, Thrive is a plant. What if he planted a seed inside of her and she's going to have a chest burster situation? In the end, only time will tell. So that's Piranha Plant Laboratory. It's probably the most important chapter that he actually finished. We see a lot of things that are set up for the future that he will never be able to depict in the comic itself. Obvious Thrive is coming back at some point. We will not see that in the comic itself, though. Chapter 3, Twister's Burrow, is a breather chapter. It starts off with them just discussing hypotheticals. What would you do if you had 1 million coins? What would you do if you had 1 million coins, Trevor?
I'd probably buy Mushroom Kingdom.
Amen, brother. That's Martello's plan.
Good plan.
McCoy just wants to waste it all in casinos, basically, which is what Nico would do.
Let's go.
And despite all his supposed hedonism, he refuses to go drinking in town with them. But that's okay. He can have a boat party with ladies and cigarettes, and he will. The sheriff of the town is a lot less happy to see the Chainless is coming back. He's based on the Shogun, or Armored Ant from Super Mario RPG. Really obscure enemy. I love seeing this kind of thing, though. Last time they were here, they engaged in some robbery, fraud, kidnapping, arson, attacking officers, indecent exposure. McCoy doesn't remember that happening, though. Martello notes he didn't mention murder. In any case, her team's only gotten stronger, and the sheriff has fewer men than last time. They're not equipped to fight, so they come to something of an agreement. They can do a little shopping, but he's going to leave some men to burn the ship to the ground if any of them step out of line. They may have had a few of their wackier shenanigans in the town that he swore to protect. They go to the bar. Martella gets a little drunk and starts to reveal her tragic backstory. She wanted to be a soldier, just like her dear old dad. He was kind of a badass. He was one of the Koopa Kingdom's legendary Hammer brothers. He and his partner got assigned to work directly for one of the Koopalings on an airship. Like, how much better a job can you get than that? This is even during the events of Super Mario Bros. 3. The war's going great. They've almost taken over the entire kingdom. But nobody knew that the Mushroom Kingdom had a contingency plan, and they had already sent their army to start the liberation process. Their real army. A man that goes by many names. Red Hat, Brother One, the Master Plumber. Any crazy stories you've heard about him are probably true. He breaks bricks with his bare hands. He can leap 30 feet in the air if he chooses not to fly. This is Mario's only other appearance in the comic, and it's just to explain that, like, Martello's dad fought him, and by some definitions, he survived. His partner on the ship, another Hammer brother, was just like instantly incinerated by a fireball that this crazy plumber was throwing. Martello's dad ends up a decrepit old man in a wheelchair. He would never walk again. Sasha Martello herself was devastated. Her entire worldview was about being a soldier like her dad. But how can you not be afraid after something like that? How can you look a veteran in his only eye and tell him that his efforts, his sacrifices have scared you out of serving your country? She decides to eventually leave, and he actually gives his approval for this. Because he tells her, like, I used to be free, and now I'll never be free again. So never get tied down. Always be chainless. Whoa, it's the name of the boat. His butler here is also a Goomba. I love the Goombas in this comic. She chooses a life of piracy, and her dad just starts laughing. Life's really funny sometimes. This will also be explained way later than you want it to be. As they're doing this backstory explanation, two people start attacking them. Go wants to reciprocate the backstory sharing, but he gets hit in the back of the head by a crazy Daisy from Paper Mario, and Martello gets tackled by a charging Chuck. They're revealed to be part of a very interesting band of criminals, all of whom appear to be queer stereotypes. Haze the Daisy's an extremely flamboyant man, Charlie the Chuck is an extremely butch female, and their boss is, of course, Boss Birdo, who, according to the manual for Super Mario Bros. 2, wants to be referred to as Berdetta and is a boy. The Chainless is pretty infamous. The Boss Birdo crew wants to kill them and take the ship, and then sell the videotapes of them killing them for money. Martello wakes up first and wants to know some information about how Go's transformation works. The drink they were drinking at the bar is fermented super mushrooms. Can he do anything with that? There's a Birdo. I forgot to click. Go can, in fact, do something with that. He begins to focus. The alcohol makes it a bit tough to focus, though. I'm sure you've all been there. And he ends up doing a bit of a different super transformation. In this form, he's, of course, no match for Boss Birdo. She immediately shoots an egg at him and sends him flying into a wall. But she's impressed. No normal Toad would be able to do something like that. What are you? Boss Birdo asks, and Go replies, he's chainless. Martello, meanwhile, is enacting a plan since her ropes have broken. She throws a hammer around the rafters. It loops around the Birdo's neck, and she gets Palma to pull the rope. And they string up Boss Birdo in this warehouse in a twist of fate. At the end of this chapter, we see a mysterious figure who's at the burned down Piranha Plant laboratory, lamenting the fact that the Chainless has already been here and he wasn't in time to stop them. That's the end of Twister's Boros. Originally a breather chapter, it turns into murder in a warehouse, which is, it's just what happens sometimes, you know. We move on to Chapter 4, Bob-omb Battlefield. The crew takes a job from a group of pink Bob-ombs. The pink Bob-ombs are a highly intelligent race. They are freedom-loving, and so they want to be liberated from the black Bob-ombs who remain loyal to their programming and want them to be used to explode. Notably, machines who can think don't like to explode. Then we get to the most infamous panel in all of the comic. He hired a new artist, and people freaking hated this. People have grown really attached to like the rough kind of drawing. Like Martello here is like a little too sexy. That was the big complaint at the time. He hired an artist named Obfuscable, who would last for about 70 panels actually. Morgenstern had always felt that his art held the comic back. It's pretty rough. There's a lot of like sketch lines. It's pretty technically bad overall in a lot of places. And there's a huge improvement from a technical aspect, but the audience just did not like this. The very next page would go to depict like all the characters. Martello notably changed a lot between these two panels. This actually went through like 4 revisions. McCoy used to look a lot different. I can't find an archived image of it though. Palma had like huge breasts at one point. They scaled that back significantly. Overall, I like all these character designs a lot. They fight a Bob-omb mech that shoots a laser. Guy is notably absent from this fight. He stays back in the fortress with the pink Bob-ombs. And McCoy explains that Guy doesn't really do well around automatons, which leads us into the Guy and McCoy backstory. Shy Guys in Morgenstern's telling are an extremely diverse people. They're scavengers who don't tend to invent things of their own. They adopt local customs and technology. This is why you have some characters like General Guy in Paper Mario who has a tank, and then you have spear guys who live in huts and use spears. Guy's tribe was a particularly low-tech one that didn't even have a written language or a spoken language. They communicated through hand symbols and body language. And robots killed his entire tribe, so he's pretty freaked out about automatons at all. Much like Palma's backstory comes from Sunshine, Guy and McCoy's comes from Super Mario RPG. McCoy directly name drops the Smithy invasion here, and Morgenstern interprets the pogo-sticking shysters from that game as mindless cyborg Shy Guys, which is a pretty cool twist on it. A young McCoy stepped up to kill these cyborgs, not out of any heroism, but just for the thrill of combat. He pretty effortlessly kills them all, and then he didn't notice in his celebration one Shy Guy survivor that had snuck up on him. He gives the Shy Guy the assurance, "Settle down there, Guy, you're gonna be all right." And that stuck as the name for Guy the Shy Guy. McCoy tells him that he doesn't mind him following him around, and the two have been inseparable ever since. McCoy tries to play the aloof type, but it's obvious in like every facet of his character that he cares a lot more for the other characters than he would ever want you to believe. While they're doing this backstory, Go and McCoy get snuck up on by like a bunch of Bob-ombs and get taken prisoner. McCoy is hesitant to break out of this prison if it means he has to face like 100 Bob-ombs that will all explode. But then Go notices that the cage they're in has Vim, life force, which is the source of the power-ups in Mario. Can he do something with that? I don't know, can he? Martello and Palma parlay with the King Bob-omb, who's my favorite character in this. There's an original King Bob-omb. He's a huge dude. He talks with like a foghorn leghorn accent, and he offers them a choice. They can surrender to him, scrap all the pink Bob-ombs, and he'll build weapons for the Chainless. They naturally refuse, but the King unit is not so easy a foe. He throws Palma pretty effortlessly. Guy stayed back from the negotiations. He's a mute. He hates machines. Wouldn't be helpful. But he strikes up a friendship with one of the pink Bob-ombs, and the comment section of the comic takes to calling this little pink Bob-omb squishy. The King unit continues to make his case while he fights Martello and Palma. They're all bombs. To pretend they have freedom is, quite frankly, very silly. Note that in his little like dreamed up vision here, the priest that is marrying these two Bob-ombs is reading from the Book of Armaments from Monty Python and the Holy Grail's Holy Hand Grenade scene, which I think is extremely clever. Yeah, like they're bombs. They're not gonna get married and have children. They're there to explode. Go's transformation occurs and it has some unexpected results. Metal Mario is like pretty cool and solid. Go is liquid. Bombs are pretty ineffective against liquid metal, so he doesn't seem to be complaining. So McCoy's pretty all right with the situation. They eventually do meet up with Martello and Palma while fighting the King Bomb. They knock his head off, and then Squishy tells Guy, if you can get me in that King unit, I can hack it, and then we can save everybody. So Guy goes in for the slam dunk, and Squishy has a confession. He lied. The plan was always to do what bombs do best. He's going to blow up and take him down with him. Guy speaks for the first time in his entire life, saying, please don't.
Oh, I got you.
But Squishy is ready to make the sacrifice. There's nothing anyone can do to convince him otherwise. McCoy echoes the words from their last encounter with the robots as some extremely cheesily timed rain begins to pour. Settle down there, Guy. You're gonna be all right. Martello and the Pink Bombs have a discussion on the meaning of freedom. The whole rebellion was started to keep them from blowing up, but it ended with a Pink making the choice to blow himself up. Not for the Koopas or for his programming, but to do what he wanted to do. And Martello tells them to never forget the price they paid for freedom. Go survives being liquid metal and being flattened by the King Bomb. He says to add that to the list of things he is never doing again. He explains that the way he was able to survive is he's been having these weird dreams lately where he's in a library and he's supposed to be waiting for someone but he doesn't know who, but he's in a library, so he just starts reading his books. And he remembers from his dream reading a book about the King Bomb and like where his liquid metal body could infiltrate the king's body. And in doing so, he actually manages to also encase the memory core of Squishy, and they are able to rebuild him. And Morgenstern canonizes the name Squishy by giving him the code 5QU15H-IE. This chapter also ends on like a little teaser for what is going on in the background. It gives us an intriguing hook for the future. There's a mysterious green man. He is a Beanish Knight from Superstar Saga. He has a locket that he's communicating to someone else with. They show up to the battlefield to find the King unit detonated, and he says that he's been reduced to mere shrapnel, and he will be referred to as Shrapnel for the rest of the series. The mushroom-masked guy from the end of Twister's Borrow is also here, and he claims that he knows a way that they can find the Chainless. Chapter 5, Battle at Pokeyhead. After like a 3-month hiatus, it returns to the original Morgenstern art. Obfuscable is gone. He could not handle the pressure of all these nerds telling him that his art wasn't true to the Mushroom Ghost style. That first Obfuscable comic had like 140 comments on it, and the average Mushroom Go comic got like 6 or 7. So it was a big deal when Obfuscable came onto the scene. Battle at Pokeyhead's another kind of breather episode. They go to a cart track in the middle of the desert. They're all in disguises, mostly just for fun. You can see some elements of Obfuscable's art style carry over into Morgenstern's new phase. McCoy no longer has just an oval beak. He's got like a full bird beak. The ticket seller here is a Locky-Too, which is cool. Go starts to reveal his backstory to Palma, who heard him saying his ex-girlfriend's name in his sleep. He was sort of an amnesiac, but was already starting to remember things as early as like the end of chapter 1. Go had a girlfriend who was a cart engineer, and he followed her onto a city airship. She was the breadwinner in the relationship, and he was a small-time sales clerk. But then his uncle died and left a notebook to him, his uncle's research into the old art. Go became obsessed with this as this was like his one ticket out of mediocrity. But he was terrified of ever actually doing it because, you know, setting yourself on fire is kind of a bad way to die. But he's constantly thinking about this. He's always in his own head, which we see from his constant soliloquizing. And eventually he and Blair begin to drift apart, and she kicks him out of the house. And so he goes on like a week-long bender fueled by alcohol and ancient magic. Eventually, in one of the bars, he runs into one of Blair's friends. They get into some kind of argument. It's not remembered exactly what it was. That friend crossed a line, though. He takes Go's hat. Remember that in Toad culture, hats are sacred. They get into a bar fight that like tumbles out into the street. And as you remember, this is on an airship. And the bar had always been kind of close to the edge of the ship. So from the beginning, Go was an amnesiac. He was just massively hungover and probably concussed from a bar fight. His big reveal is that his mysterious past is that he's just a loser who got kicked out of the house and then into a bar fight. Martello and McCoy leave Go and Palma alone, essentially trying to trick them into a date with each other. And then suddenly, in the middle of the race, something huge crashes. It's Shrapnel, baby. He's back for round 2. Martello is going to meet up with McCoy. They have a bet going on whether or not they can actually get Go and Palma to date. But she finds that there's something wrong with her plan. Detective Jack Fabes is here to arrest her. Similarly, McCoy has to step in and save Guy from being harassed by Fungus, the mushroom-masked guy. Martello is confused that Jack's after her. There are a lot of criminals with bigger bounties than the Chainless, and criminals who are less dangerous than the Chainless. But Jack explains he's not here about her crimes as a member of the Chainless, but rather from her backstory right where it cut off when she joined a pirate crew called the Brigand Bravo. In Jack's eyes, Martello's a sinner who's escaped justice for far too long. She struck deals with a bunch of governments at some point to get her record clean, but Jack doesn't believe in it. He also proves to be an exceptional fighter. Martello's beaten back and bloodied. He details his plan further. He's going to take her to justice. She's going to be put on trial. But Martello, ever the quick thinker, takes out a load-bearing pillow and sends a bunch of random Mario-related items falling down on Jack. You can see a red coin, a spin block, a pipe. Fungus is also proving to be quite exceptional. He's easily matching or exceeding Guy's evasiveness, and he even seems to know a lot about the individual members of the team. McCoy does eventually get the better of him, and while he's on the ground, he pleads with Guy, say something, anything to anybody. And this absolutely sets McCoy off because he's always thought about saying those exact words to Guy. Fungus just quoted him verbatim on something he's only ever said in his head. And McCoy comes to the conclusion that Fungus must be a mind reader. He's in their heads. And he knows a pretty good way to shut down a mind reader. So good. A second new artist joins for about a month. The D&D mom comes in. Morgenstern took like a 3-month hiatus in the middle of this chapter just because he hates drawing. This happens slightly earlier in the Fungus fight, but it's just these 3 panels, and so I didn't bring it up there. Reception is actually mostly good compared to the Alpha Scholar controversy. The D&D mom is even a volunteer, but unfortunately, as volunteers sometimes do, she just went radio silent after a month and never drew for him ever again. Jack, the detective, is buried under the rubble, and his handler, who is revealed to be a Goomba here with her little mouth, provides him a spell to empower him. Ooh. And you'll notice that this is clearly Magic Koopa magic, as it has a circle, square, and triangle, just like the Magic Koopas in Super Mario always do when they cast their spells. This is also the only image of Hyatt, is her name, the Goomba, that we see in the entire comic, and I think that's really funny. We get this tiny box of her mouth. Go actually has a plan to beat Shrapnel. He sneaks off and commandeers a cart and launches it off a jump and starts counting down seconds in his head. We then flash back to while he was dating Blair, he got to drive the cart sometimes and ask her about the power-ups. And he asks about the lightning bolt. It shrinks the carts. So we see the cart land in the knee of Shrapnel here. It looks kind of small though, and so does Go. A tiny Go lands near Palma just as the timer begins to expire. The cart expands and cracks his knee. Morgenstern politely informs the comment section that if a Skyrim joke is made, we're all fired. This comic came out 2 years after Skyrim. And that's the last panel of the comic. It will not be getting a revival. But there's so much left. He left so many notes for us, and I'm going to take you through the notes, and you will realize that this is actually the best story that's ever been told. Morgenstern just doesn't like drawing, can't stand it. I don't know why he started a webcomic when he hates drawing, but he did. He also had some run-ins with 4chan and the Bad Webcomics Wiki. The Bad Webcomics Wiki is a real website. Postings were initially sometime in 2011, which is the year the comic started. A full review on it was done in 2014 after the comic ended, and they had some major criticisms like, why don't they look like Mario characters? And he's obviously making this up as he goes along. I really liked this one comment because it's just so vitriolic and dumb. Interesting, right? Not really. Maybe if it was written by someone with a speck of skill, but it wasn't. So to prove that he had no plans and was making things up as we go along, we'll move on to the ARG that he had. This was detailed in the section of Update 134. His avatar was a GIF that would flash the words, "A king unit was disconnected." So you check the archive and see that too. You go to the comic where that phrase was uttered, "King unit 7500 is disconnected." 7500, 75 to 100. The first letter of each comic spells out, "Thrive is alive on all the sides." You know that the message is over because the last comic is in all caps and not in English, "Sic semper tyrannis, thus always the tyrants." Are there more hidden messages in the first letters? There are. 101 to 121, a comic that's in a different language title. Is fungus among us at all? So if you go to thriveisaliveonallthesides.com, it would take you to Mushroom Go Mondo, which we no longer have any images of. It's been completely scrubbed from history. It was supposed to detail Jack Fabe's and Hyatt's backstories. Would have been awesome. We have no pictures of it. There's no evidence that it exists other than Morgenstern saying that it did. IsFungusAmongUsAtAll.com would lead you to Mushroom Go Gnarly, which is a collaborative project with artist Cami Luna. It follows a ninja girl. I like Cami Luna's art a lot here. It's a self-contained story with no connection to the plot. She goes to Twister's Burrow and causes some trouble. Just kidding, this is actually super relevant later. We have a lot of unanswered questions though. Who are the people that were fighting the Chainless? Is Thrive actually alive on all the sides? What's under Guy's mask? And was it going to be Kino? We'll start at the beginning of these with who are the people fighting the Chainless? They are the Golden Guard. They also had a sand ship. Their emblem would be a golden chain chomp with a king hat. And it's a 5-man band just like the Chainless. Jack Fabes is a Beanish Knight, as I showed earlier. He's a law friend. He's super obsessed with the concept of justice. He's oblivious to the fact that the Goomba who teaches him everything loves him. He's the owner of the Golden Guard, and he's a pretty cool guy. He just wants criminals to serve justice. What's wrong with that? Hyatt, the Goomba GF, is a revolutionary. She wants to build a kingdom for the Goombas, by the Goombas, of the Goombas. Goombas are kind of treated like second-class citizens in Koopa society. You'll notice the only butler depicted is a Goomba. She's extremely protective of Jack, and she would distrust all the other members of the team who are just people that Jack picks up for no real reason. And she's the one who built the Golden Guard, their sand ship. She illegally studied Magic Koopa magic, again showing the Magic Koopa magic, and that's her thing. The Ninja was never named. She's the girl from Gnarly. I told you she was important later. Her mission was to track McCoy down. He wronged the elders of her village a long time ago when McCoy was a wanderer. She actually showed up in the background of several comics. McCoy does throw a boat party in Twister's Burrow, and that is the Ninja Girl in disguise. Later, during Guy and Fungus's fight, this bunny girl in the background is, and during like a lightning flash in one panel, you can see her in the background. She wants to capture McCoy and is perfectly willing to kill everyone else on the crew. She becomes friends with Fungus and Hyatt. Jack absolutely hates her. If she kills Martello, what's the point of all this? He needs her to face real justice. Shrapnel joins their team as well. He's the big guy. There's very little written about Shrapnel's backstory. He and Jack are kind of friends though. Fungus repaired him. I guess that makes them friends. Fungus himself seems to have his own agenda. There's an obvious connection to Guy and McCoy. He fights exactly like McCoy. Ooh. He's not a mind reader, but his secret identity is related to the biggest plot twist in the comic that we never got to see. So this sets up this nice parallel where each member of the Golden Guard is the antithesis of one of the members of the Chainless. They're the perfect rival group. The next plot that would have happened is called The Calling. In Mario 64, there was a boss called Iraq. In Mushroom Go lore, this is the avatar of an evil deity that sleeps beneath the desert. It draws people to it so that it can eat sand ships, absorb the power stars, and eventually leave and take over the world. The Chainless is built with non-Euclidean geometry, which is a nice buzzword from Lovecraft. It's bigger on the inside and growing. Doctor Who reference for no reason. The ghost of the original creator of the Chainless roams the subspace hallways. He would have been depicted as an Eerie from Super Mario World. We can only imagine what this actual character design would have looked like. Go and Palma would encounter the ghost while exploring, and the Golden Guard would pursue the Chainless all the way to the graveyard, where they would then encounter each other and the IROC. Notably, McCoy gets to punch a god, which was a very important thing to Morgenstern. After that, Thrive is indeed alive on all the sides. Only time will tell. The Koopa army wasn't going to destroy the lab. They were going to pick up Thrive so that they could weaponize him. More importantly, Thrive infected Go. That library where he's like reading military information from is Thrive's knowledge. Go does this little thing where he throws up after every transformation. This is also a result of Thrive poisoning. Interestingly, 2 years before the comic ended, this one random commenter just nailed it, like, oh, those are Thrive's knowledge in those books in his head, which I think is awesome. Red Suit Go that appears in the dreams is like Thrive taking over Go's consciousness. When this is revealed, Thrive attempts to take credit for all of Go's character development, which I think is a hilarious conflict to have, including Go's growing relationship with Palma. Thrive was kind of obsessed with her because she's a plant. Thrive would eventually complete his possession of Go. The rest of the crew would fight Red Suit Go in reality, while in his ego, Go would fight Red Suit Thrive in the mental library. It comes to a point where like they're at a stalemate, and then Go threatens to burn down the entire library representing his knowledge. So he's going to lobotomize himself to kill Thrive. But that would make Palma sad if there were no Thrive and no Go. So Thrive abandons his possession of Go there. And that's the resolution to that. Guy speaks. Go and Palma begin to drift apart. Guy and Palma start hanging out more, even getting a little romantical. She starts teaching Guy how to speak. Place your bets now. What's under Guy's mask? What could it be? Morgenstern did a funny little joke comic once. None of these are true, but a lot of them have interesting implications for what actually is true later. The big reveal is that Guy is actually a girl. He's a female toad. The Shy Guys of Guy's tribe not only didn't have language, they also didn't have sexual reproduction. They would basically kidnap children and indoctrinate them into their culture. So Guy was a female toad. She would spend the rest of the series unmasked but wearing Shy Guy attire. This puts a halt on Palma and Guy's relationship because Palma is straight, quote, in this particular timeline. We'd have a few filler episodes. We'd see Martello's dad's backstory a little more. Martello's dad is a Toge bro from Wario. His partner would be mad about this because Toge bros are immune to fire, and Martello's dad's partner got killed by a fireball from Mario. So he would get resurrected as a dry bones hammer brother. And he'd be really mad about Martello's dad not taking the fireball for him. Bowser isn't around for some reason. Normally acts of military necromancy, quote, are under the subject of the Koopa King himself. So this is like a rogue cell of Koopas committing military necromancy. This sets up an incredibly important reveal. This story takes place during Mario Galaxy, so none of the major players in the world are on the planet, which sets up like the perfect opportunity for this kind of side story thing to happen. We would move on to Thrive 3, the Thrivening. Didn't we kill him twice? Shut up. Thrive is easily going to break out of the control of the Koopas. They came and picked him up. He's going to take over a forest, and then from there, the world. Also, we just covered, Mario, Luigi, and Bowser are off the planet. Like, no one can really stop this once it starts. So, the real twist here is that Fungus is Trunks. He's a member of the Chainless who went back in time from a timeline where Thrive won to stop it all from happening. That's why he went to the Piranha Plant Laboratory first. That's why he keeps tracking the Chainless. Specifically, Fungus is Guy. That's why he knows so much about Guy and McCoy's backstory, and why he is desperately trying to get Guy to speak. The Golden Guard and the Chainless would team up and kill Thrive before he can escape. Thrive is dead for real, we promise, 100% this time, not joking. Jack Fabes, the detective, considers Martello and co. absolved of all their crimes. They just saved the world. Can't really punish her at this point. The Ninja and Fungus are like official members of the Chainless now. The Ninja has completely abandoned her plot to capture McCoy. Fungus is literally Guy. Shrapnel goes completely unmentioned throughout this entire reveal, but he's later depicted as a member of the Chainless in the backstory, so we know that he joined them. We then flash back to the Brigand Bravo. Martello, Guy, and McCoy were crew of a different sand ship called the Brigand Bravo, and they killed a lot of people. Martello was known as Daigo's Dragon. Who is Daigo? Daigo Kong. He's an absolute mad lad. His hobbies are killing, murdering, looting, destroying, burning, killing. And he has one goal above all else. He wants to be the man who kills Mario. So Martello understands this is insane. She's heard the things Mario's capable of. And so she, McCoy, and Guy stage a mutiny. They defeat Daigo. Very early on in the comic, McCoy mentions that Go's the first person to have actually hit Guy since, well, you know who. It was Daigo. Martello makes a deal with most of the countries in the world. She will give them Daigo in exchange for a pardon for all her crimes. This is the source of Jack's frustration. I don't care how many governments he struck deals with. You're a murderer. I'm taking you in. In the present day, the Ninja is on McCoy's team, so her clan is starting to get desperate. They break Daigo out of prison and they poison him with an ultimatum. If you bring McCoy back to us alive, we will give you the antidote. Does anyone want to guess what Daigo's reaction to this is?
Kills.
He's perfectly happy to die of McCoy's. He's going to go kill McCoy. Daigo proceeds to stop the Chainless in motion with his bare hands. It is a massacre. McCoy is put into a coma. Fungus straight up dies. Shrapnel is mentioned as being part of this fight. That's important. Go comes up with an idea to stop this insane Kong. He absorbs the power star of the Chainless using the old art. He becomes literally omnipotent. You know what happens in Mario when you get a star. He just obliterates Daigo, one-shots him, and he starts becoming one with the universe. Go ceases to exist at this point. He's absorbed so much power that he's ascended to the stars. There's a lot less planned out from this point. The Chainless has no engine. Martello puts Palma in charge and just leaves. This is the halfway point, according to Morgenstern. He was going to figure the rest out as he went along. The Chainless crew for part 2 is Palma, Goy, Shrapnel, and the Ninja. A Shrewd would join? Sure. Guy and the Ninja would go into Cyphacon from Super Mario Bros. 2 to save McCoy from his coma, at which point he would go off to find Martello. They would form a new second team and both would get airships. And then we move to the ending. He had the final part planned out. The final boss was going to be an experimental Mecha Koopa using Smithy technology, the Exor Koopa, which I have, using all my artistic skills, depicted here. Exor is the big sword from Super Mario RPG. So it was built by the same rogue Koopa cell that tried to weaponize Thrive and was doing all this military necromancy. Captain Palma leads the entire world's united forces against the Exor Koopa. They wish on a star and Go's soul manifests to fight alongside them. He reveals that he's in training on Star Road to replace Mario when Mario eventually dies. Galaxy ends, Mario and his friends return to Earth to the Exor Koopa having been destroyed. The world is saved. Martello and McCoy retire to an island that they own. Hyatt confesses her love to Fabes. Shrapnel becomes the protector of Squishy's little Bob-omb town. And Palma and her crew have one last great adventure. They're going to the Star Road. They're gonna find Go. And that's the end of the comic, as we know it. Final thoughts. It's amazing. I ranked my favorite chapters in order, and we've got like 5 minutes. If anyone has any questions about this, you missed everything. Like,
I'm so sorry. I was like,
what you got, Nico?
The guy, did he do any more webcomics besides this?
He has gone on to do a couple more comics. He did an April Fool's joke once where he did a sprite comic instead of a hand-drawn one, and he was like, wow, this is so much easier, and like I actually enjoy this. And so he made like 2 or 3 different horror-themed ones that I never really got into, and he would always preface his new projects with, "It's not Mushroom Go."
the fans were hoping so much that it's come back.
I still am. I still am.
Has he ever talked about his inspirations?
I saw that.
Mario?
Yeah. He hasn't mentioned any like specific other works that he's drawn from, to my knowledge, but like just the general idea that he's a big anime fan is pretty apparent.
And Soul Eater seems very
Okay.
era.
I'm not familiar with that one, so I can't comment on it.
Can you give an interpretive, like, can you just act out one of your favorite scenes? No! Please!
I actually have.
Pay you $5.
I have on my YouTube channel a live reading of this comic with my younger brother and an internet friend.
Okay,
So
wait,
it's-
what is that?
What is
yes?
YouTube?
That is a great question.
My YouTube channel is just my name, Ross Edwards. So if you search Ross Edwards Mushroom Go, it should come up. We did 2 live streams on Twitch where we just read the whole comic.
Have there been any, like, fan-made spin-offs of Mushroom
There were a couple that never lasted more than like a couple pages. Webcomics are a big undertaking. They require so much more effort than anything you get out of them. Like, but I love them. I love webcomics so much.
You gotta go back and
All right.
Who's your favorite Mario character?
My favorite Mario character? Oh, that's a good one. I'm a big fan of just like the generic Koopa troll from Paper Mario. I think that's like the coolest looking design of any Mario character. Actual like named characters, I'm probably just a Mario guy. He's cool.
Paper Mario being your favorite Mario game?
Probably not. I'm an SMW guy. I used to speedrun it. I wasn't any good, but I did it. Anything else? Well, I have been Ross Edwards, and this has been Mushroom Go. Thank you all for listening. It's genuinely like the most compelling story that I've ever read.
I just like the Shy Guy design.
All his designs are great.
Really good.
One thing I will say though, I don't like it when people go, oh, they're making it up on this. Of course they are.
So what?
To some extent, but he very clearly had like an incredible amount of thought put into
Oh
everything.
yeah. No, the Gravity Falls was made up as a winner.
Yeah.
That's great. But,
Like things change as you write.
oh, yes. No,